IT is not some cost center on the sidelines. It's actually right there in the middle of things.
Welcome to our Tech.Rulez.Period TV show. My guest today says digitization is a mindset and IT is in the middle of production, whether it's producing cars or creating monetary policies. She has a diploma and master in mathematics and has served almost a decade with Deutsche Bahn. Today, she's the Director General Information Systems at the European Central Bank. We were chatting prior to this TV show, and she said she's the CDO, CIO, and CTO in one person. Welcome to the show, Claudia Plattner.
Thank you very much, Dominic. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Claudia, talking about Tech.Rulez.Period, that's predominantly around technology and how the impact has changed over the last decade. Also talking about IT, and we purposely use those two words sort of as synonyms or in contradiction to each other. So if I ask you, how has your job as a CDO, CIO, and CTO changed over the last decade? How would you describe that?
Well, to be perfectly honest, my job itself has not changed all that much because I've always considered IT as part of the business process. It's, as I said, right there in the middle of things, and it needs to be right there in the middle of things, and I've always handled it like that. So right from the very beginning, when I started out in my career in IT, whatever I've done, it was always with a look towards what do we use it for? What can we do with it? So it was always the business that actually ruled what we did there. But I do understand that, of course, I observe it as well, that my environment has changed.
Yeah.
May sound a little bit strange, but I've always acted as if IT and business had to be the same in a way. But somehow it seems the world is catching up just these days, or in the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years, where we really see a shift towards making sure that IT is not some cost center on the sidelines. Yeah. It's actually right there in the middle of things. It's where it's needed, where we build things that actually provide value. And this is a fundamental shift in how people look at IT. For me, the change is not that big because I've always not just thought about what could be fun to do with it, but what do we use it for?
Okay, but some people say 10 years ago it was just deploying a workplace or a server, but today it's like fundamentally changing business processes. Did you see that change, or is that something, as you just said, that for you was always there and now actually everybody else around you picks that one up? Or do you think the speed of innovation around technologies and their impact to the business has also changed a bit?
It has definitely changed. So things have sped up. So we do see that these days you can't do anything without IT. 10 years ago, you stood at least a chance, right?
Yes.
So it has fundamentally changed. But really, the speed is I think the differentiating factor here. I think it's always been there. And if you try to run your business 10 years ago without IT, you would have failed as well. But maybe you were a little bit more looking towards, let's say, I don't know, some ERP systems or something where you think, okay, this is IT in my business. It was always there, but now it's made this shift into production.
Yeah.
Try to run a production line in automotive. Try to run a logistics business without IT. Try to, as I said, do monetary policy without the data, without making sense of all of this. It's simply not possible. So it has shifted. It has become a lot more prominent in really the value stream that you need in order to actually provide value and do business.
Okay, you mentioned a lot of time now speed. If you would compare decision-making durations in that decade time frame, from where to when did it basically change? Or is it still the same? Do you make still decisions for the next 5 years or only for the next 12 months? Or do you still make decisions for the next 10 years? How has that changed?
I think that has changed not just in my life, but in everyone's. But I may be wrong here. I can't speak for everyone else, but at least in my life it has. So I always try to look at a short-term, mid-term, and long-term perspective. So for the short-term, it's about providing value. For the mid-term, it's very much about how do we need to position IT, digitalization, how do we need to build really the capabilities to move forward? So that's the midterm. The long term is what kind of really strategic shifts do we have to do in IT, in digitalization, in order to be able to produce and be relevant in 5 years' time? And as I said, as much for monetary policy as for everything else, the question is, where are the markets going? What will be the products in 5 years? How will our production change? Will, I don't know, let's say the metaverse, will it have an influence? Quite sure it will in one way or another. The question is, what kind of influence? And when do we, as a society, have to jump on what wagon in order to be there when it happens? Yeah? So this is the long-term view. So for the short term, it's making sure that you're there, that you can help the business. It's value. For the midterm, it's really where do we need to position digitalization, capabilities, skills, all of that. And in the long term, very much about where do we need to shift, how do we need to prepare for what's going to happen in 5 years' time. So that's more or less the perspective I see. But of course, all of this is compressed. Yeah. So we used to think about, let's say, what's the strategic outlook in timelines of 10, 15, 20 years? Those times are gone. Okay. 5 years at max. More like 2 or 3 years.
5 years max. That's 2 to 3.
My personal feeling. Yeah. I'm quite sure there are others who have more of a long-term perspective, but that's what I perceive. Yeah. So that's what I see.
But you work in policy creation today, where I would say typically you have a rather long-term view sort of decision making. So if you are already saying 5 years or 2 to 3, then it has changed a lot, and it has compressed in that sense. Yeah.
I'm sure it does, but I have to be careful here. Monetary policy really is something that my colleagues do really, really well. I've tried to educate myself enough to be able to follow them, but I stay away from that because they're so much better at it. So what I mean here really is, how do I need to build up IT so that I can be able, with the team we've got, with the colleagues there, to make sure that the ECB can do monetary policy in 5 years' time. How do I have to prepare the IT to make sure that they can? So data, for example, plays a major role. AI plays a major role. So one thing that we do, for example, I've said this in another show as well. We do a scraping of websites for pricing information. We scrape 10,000 internet shops on a daily basis, just to see what's happening in pricing. Are there changes? Can we perceive something? And we do this kind of like a thermometer into the world. So we measure the temperature, find out if something's happening. That's an IT capability you need. Whatever the monetary policy or financial stability colleagues make of this is very much on their agenda. Yeah. And my job is really to anticipate what will they be needing in 5 years' time? How is the world going to change in terms of technology, in terms of digitalization? What will they need? And in order to make sure that we can still then provide that for them so that they can take the best decisions anyhow possible. So that's our job, really.
Okay, cool. And you just mentioned also metaverse. A couple of years back, we had blockchain. There will be something else like quantum computing coming out next. How do you, in your job with your teams, ensure that you are always that you always have the latest understanding on which of the technologies can disrupt, will disrupt, has the potential to disrupt? Do you do some technology scanning or something in that regards?
Yes, so plenty of things. So first of all, we still enjoy an amazing talent at the ECB. So we still draw a lot of really great people wanting to work there, also on the technology side, not just on the economy side. And so we really enjoy working with some of the best there are. So that's a privilege, I have to say. And those are people who, from an intrinsic motivation, always look out to what do we need, what's out there, what could be of interest for us. So, of course, we also have a more formalized way of doing things. So, of course, we have a trend radar where we look into things. We have an innovation team that really explores these things. And we also make sure that for some of these more innovative technologies, we do go out there. We have people going to conferences, to talks, bringing all that knowledge in, making sure that it's understood. And also the relevance is discussed together with our business areas. So quantum definitely will play a role for various reasons. So one of them, of course, is the whole encryption and security topic. That's something we need to look into, no doubt about it. And we are. And the second thing where it could be really of interest is all around financial simulation. Because quantum computing potentially has the capability to solve big problems like huge optimizations and simulations. And that's, of course, also something we're looking into.
Okay. And then do you create some sort of business value analysis around it? So how much will that have a potential impact on what the EZB is doing from a business perspective? Or is that just the impact it could have on the business processes, regardless what kind of impact?
Well, first of all, whatever we do, we always need a business case, right?
Yeah,
so even we're not spared from that.
Okay, good.
Naturally, you need to look into what has value and what doesn't. Some technologies we can still afford to basically just explore.
Okay.
For others, we have a different kind of maturity, or the technologies themselves have a different kind of maturity. So, for example, for AI, we're beyond the mere exploration stage. So here we are in a phase where, for the first use cases, we really are in production. So it's helping us today as we speak. It may not be like a widespread use across all our systems. That's not the point yet, but we are beyond the exploration phase. And for those cases where we really use it productively, because we do some assessments with it, whatnot, then, or we do lots of natural language processing really, in order to analyze things, document analysis and sentiment analysis, all kinds of things really. And these things, of course, have a business case behind it. That's beyond the mere, let's see if this could be potentially of interest for us.
Another aspect that you just mentioned was talent. And you said the EZB has something that potentially not everybody has. So it's attracting some of the brightest brains, I would say. We have one in Tech.Rulez.Period. We have one hypothesis that basically says that you don't hire or you don't recruit for skills, but rather for people that are motivated to skill themselves continuously up. What's your view on that hypothesis?
Absolutely. I think it was Simon Sinek who said that, right? Hire for attitude, not for skills. Or was it just Steve Jobs? One of them.
One of these guys.
Yeah, and I wholeheartedly agree, because the people we work with, they're perfectly capable of upskilling. And they do this. And the most important part is have them engaged, have them energized, have them motivated. And the people who work at the EZB, and really regardless of where they work, they are there because they believe in Europe. They're there because they believe they are a small part in keeping Europe stable and keeping it up there. And that's the reason they get up in the morning. And that still attracts a lot of talent, because it's a purpose. You can't get any bigger than that, right? So that's something that really makes sure that for the time being, we're still okay. That doesn't mean that we don't also lose people to some hyperscalers or whatnot. It happens, no doubt about it. But all in all, we still draw a lot of great talent. Of course, you can always use more, no doubt about it. And of course, we're also short on resources. But so far, and it also takes long to find the right people, get them in, not just because of the processes, which are, of course, more cumbersome in the public sector, but also because, of course, the market, good people are wanted everywhere, right? So that's understood. But nonetheless, so far, we still enjoy quite a lot of attraction from the EZB.
And you mentioned purpose, which is a quite interesting view, which probably in EZB you can play around with quite well. If we're talking about new work and hybrid setups, how do you use, or how do you play that one out for your workforce?
Do you mean with respect to remote working?
Where do they work? Yeah. Do you still have on-site work? Or
Yes, we do. The first thing you need to understand is that or that's special about the ECB, if you will, put it this way. We're headquartered in Frankfurt, right? So quite near to where we are right now. But the people who work there come from all over Europe. All over Europe. And so even if they live in Frankfurt and they have their residency in Frankfurt, they still have their home countries. So during the pandemic, of course, a lot of them went back. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I mean, we were forced to work from remote. And then those questions are coming up, like, where do I send my kids to school, right? So for them, that's a real issue. And it's always the case that I have someone from Helsinki all the way to Madrid in those calls. It's just the way it is. So of course you need it's a little bit more tricky to make sure that you find a policy that works for everyone. You get the cohesion in the team. But you also make sure that you give people freedom to live their life and arrange job and private life in such a balance that it works for them, given this special situation. So we are at approximately a 50-50 rule set, which I believe makes sense. But there's lots of more details in addition to the 50-50. But all in all, we're approximately 50-50. But there is still lots of people in their buildings, and that's a good thing because we also need to see each other and exchange and talk and brainstorm, be creative, and that's a lot easier to do when you're in the same room.
Okay.
So we call them pizza and beer sessions, and we should do more of those because they make a difference.
Okay, cool, good. Linking back to the introduction that I did around yourself and us joking around before the show, you said you're CDO, CTO, CIO in one person. That links me a bit to the question of where should decisions around technology being made? And I know that's a very wholehearted topic for yourself. And there is one hypothesis in Tech.Rulez.Period, which basically says that the technology steward, how we call that role, should sit on board level because technology, as we discussed it, is having an impact everywhere, like you said, in production. What's your view, and can you elaborate a bit around that?
Happy to. Yes, I do have an opinion on that one. Not sure that it applies to my current employer, but generally speaking, first of all, let me step back for one moment. Making sure that there is someone on the board level who understands IT is one thing. Making sure that your team, the people who actually provide the value, because me as a person, I don't provide value. The people do it. They build things which can then be used. They're making sure things are productive. They need to be embedded into all of the organization. If they are just, on the sidelines, as I said earlier, as a cost center, that's basically just given requirements and demands, this is never going to work. So the only way to do this is really cross-functional. So very much also about the team and not just about this one person. But nonetheless, I strongly believe that with digitalization being everywhere and being a necessity, if we don't do this, we will not be relevant. And really, it doesn't matter what line of business you're in. With this being a given, we need to make sure that we also have on the board level people who understand that. And they understand the bits and bytes of it, with enough of a knowledge to be able to see trends which are happening, being able to act accordingly, streamlining production in one way or another. And this needs to be discussed on board level. And to be perfectly honest, we cannot have those people who really will play a major role in the future spend too much time in educating others from a position where they cannot have the influence that will be needed in order to be successful in business. So therefore, I'm very much in favor of making sure that we have the digitalization role, whether it's IT, whether it's operations, whether it's digitalization, it doesn't really matter. But this competency and the mandate to take decisions for it needs to be on the board level. I'm quite convinced of that. So this doesn't apply for public sector. So this is not going to happen in the ECB or most likely also in other public institutions anytime soon. But at least for industry, let's make sure this happens, because this is really crucial in being successful in the future. I'm quite convinced of that. So it may be a personal opinion, but
but thanks for sharing the view. I mean, you also said technology or technology savviness, how we basically refer to it, needs to be across the organization so that people basically understand what they are talking about. in your former employer, but also today at the ECB, what kind of trainings or upskilling around technologies do you have in place, or you don't have it because people are intrinsically motivated to do it in their free time? Do you have an institutional approach to raising the level of technology savviness?
Yes, we do. Okay. So we have lots of trainings from different sides. Some of them are more in a general sense. So they're coming from the HR side. Then we have a lot of data stuff that's coming from the statistics side. Then from the supervision side, we have also very much really about new technologies, because they are the front runners when it comes to these new technologies. So it's not just from an IT side, of course, always, but that's the easy part. Making sure that the business is also engaged in this and they develop this tech savviness. That's a lot more. Yeah, well, it's a lot more challenging, really. But we have from various sides big programs where we really try to get people on board. That works quite well, I have to say. Okay. People are interested, and also in the business departments we have lots of people who are interested, and really also citizen developership that we're trying to make more. Get them broader access to it, making sure that we provide that as IT to make sure we can tap into this challenge. All of this is happening, definitely, and I think it's very, very necessary. But when it comes to getting someone on the business side who is really capable of, let's say, understanding what trends might be of interest in the future, I think it makes sense to have someone who's really been trained a little bit more than just, half a year digitalization class or something like that.
Okay.
So take the quantum example. Yeah, you need to understand the importance for security. What's happening there? You need to understand what's going on there, and your knowledge should ideally extend beyond. All the algorithms could potentially be, useless. And the same for simulation. You should understand what difference it makes if you all of a sudden are capable of solving huge systems of linear equations, and whether they're discrete or not discrete. So it needs a little bit more than just, half a year of digitalization class, I think. Again, my personal opinion.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much, Claudia. We are already...
That's it?
Through? Yes, we are already through the time that we have allocated for this conversation. We have learned a lot about yourself as a person, but also your viewpoints on sort of compressed decision-making, the importance of technology as part of your current role, but also as part of your former roles, and what you look... or how you look at talent and tech, raising the tech savviness bar. So thank you very much for spending the time with us, and we are very much looking forward to see you around. That was our show today. Thank you very much, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.